Hi, welcome to the first on air. If you haven't guessed this already, my name is Fahim. I've spent more than half a decade working in the accounting tech space in the UK, and I recently threw myself into the space here in the UAE. The whole idea of this webinar is to let you know how the best of breed businesses and accountants are navigating the sea of different solutions out there and how you can solve their problems using technology. We're based here in the UAE, in sunny Dubai. So most of our episodes are going to be specific to this region, but a lot of the tools will also have a worldwide application. We'll try to identify the problems that firms are experiencing, give you a glimpse of what's out there and any possible solutions. We'll also give you the opportunity to talk to the people who are front and center of solving these issues for the wider community. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guest, Rayhan. Rayhan, could you introduce yourself, please?
Fahim, thank you very much for bringing me on episode number 1. So very privileged and proud to be on air with Fahim. I'm sure it's going to go down in history as the greatest ever tech show for accountants. So yeah, thanks for having me. My name's Rayhan. For those who don't know who I am the co-founder of Taxstar. We're a tax technology company. We currently have a product called Taxstar, a corporation tax software that automates corporation tax. We've got a few other products in the pipeline, such as e-invoicing in the UAE, as well as Zakat in Saudi as well. And what we're trying to do is we want to make accountants superhuman. So we want this process of tax returns taking hours and days into minutes. And that's our mission, to give your time back. So either if you want to work extra hours and make more money, taking on more clients, or if you want to go to the golf course and leave at 5 o'clock, either way, we're here to support you from that point of view as well. And that's really our mission. I'm born and raised in the UK. My background is I am an accountant. I worked in London for most of my career. I moved to Dubai 9 years ago to also set up a firm. And so I have that knowledge and experience of what accounting firms are going through in terms of pain points from, dealing with clients, dealing with how to get your firm, how to grow it, all of those different pain points I've been through. And, I like to kind of pass on my knowledge to others as well.
Thank you so much for that, Rayhan. And also thanks so much for being the first person to start this webinar. The whole idea was really born from everything we're doing here at Scope, and also what Ayman and Zubair are building with Accounting Refigured, and the whole concept about education and letting people know what's out there, what problems there are, and how you can actually solve it. So again, thanks for being the first guest. So a couple of things I would like to discuss just to get us started. And the elephant in the room at the moment is obviously going to be corporation tax. For you, what is the biggest headache right now for firms that are tackling corporation tax for the first or the second time?
Well, first things first, you've got like 28 days left to file your corporation tax returns. So for those who are, who've just come back from the summer holidays and they need to start doing the tax returns, you've got a time limit. And these are for businesses that were obviously their year end is calendar year end, so and they would have finished their books 31st of December 2024. So the key problem, one of the pain points that many accounting firms face is the fact that essentially what you're doing is your client is outsourcing their finance function to you, which means that you need to make sure your processes are as slick, you're on top of all of the deadlines, you're following up. There's so many different touch points that you as an accountant have with the owner, and there's a lot of, you also are privileged in the sense that they come to you whenever they need support, and you know their financial affairs. So you're privileged enough to know information that not many other people would know about. And so what that means is they rely on you to be able to provide reports, make sure they don't get penalties, make sure that they're efficient from a tax point of view. So accountants right now are facing multiple issues from or at that level in those fronts. And they need to find tools and solutions that help them become more efficient. Now, accounting can sometimes be a thankless task as well. So you might finish the accounts day 5, day 15, you send it to your client, you've spent all that hard work getting that information, putting it in the right, accounting for it in the right way, putting it into the system, sending them a report, making sure that report is accurate and having the reviews in between. And sometimes it can be a thankless task, and making sure that you're able to be consistent in your service delivery is important, even when you're not getting the appreciation that you need as well. And I think these talks are very important in the sense that what Scope provides, not just you provide all the tools and you have insights on all the tools that are available to help the accounting firm go from this whole muddle of mess that you've given all of the information you need to prepare accounts and do the filings, to providing slick operations, as well as being able to be profitable, being able to have good cash flow as an accounting firm as well, making sure you hire the right people, make sure your team is productive. And I think this is the kind of holy grail for many accounting firms. A lot of accounting firms are run by accountants. Accountants are not entrepreneurs, right? We go into entrepreneurship, and then we need to find tools and people that can help us become more efficient and better entrepreneurs at the end of it.
That's a really well thought out answer, so appreciate that. So at Scope, we work with a wide variety of different accountants and accounting professionals. And what we find a lot of the time is that people are still predominantly relying on, the good old Excel sheet, the spreadsheets, email trails, and things like that. Why do you think that is? Like, what's the main barrier to entry, I should say?
So it goes back to accountants. They love Excel, right? And Excel is like, I think I had this chat with Brian, the co-founder of Scope once, and we were talking about Excel and accountants, right? And I think he mentioned to me that Excel is like the code base for accountants. So they put all the formulas in, they put all of the information in an Excel sheet, and then they produce their reports, and they're very protected over the Excel template and processes. And so as an accountant, when you first kind of, in my generation anyway, when you go into the accounting field, Excel is actually your tool, is your friend. It's almost like your chat GPT to produce the work that you need to produce as an accountant. So you're very much reliant on it. If I go back to, my dad was an accountant. If I go back to his generation, they had everything on paper, right? So when I was growing up and I was looking at the way he did things, he would have ledgers for everything, and it would be written down. And I really hated that, right? I was like, there must be a better way to do accounting rather than putting it in paper. And that's where the Excel came in. Excel is also free, right? So that basically means that you don't need to pay for software. So once you're an expert in Excel and you start using it, a lot of accountants and accounting firms still use it because they rely on it, they understand it, they know how the ins and outs of the limitations as well as the possibilities with Excel, so they stick to it. The problem with the system is accountants, sometimes you have some accountants who are very embracive of technology, and you have some accountants who hate technology because they've been burnt, right? So for example, you may have, you set up your firm, but maybe a few years back you were working for a big company, and that big company was implementing SAP, for example, and you saw the journey of going from a manual process to SAP, and you saw that this project was of 6 months, supposed to be a 6 months project, but it got extended to 18 months. And then when you get to 18 months, you have so many broken processes and so many workarounds you have to do to get the information out of the system that your mindset is, I hate technology. I don't want to use technology in my processes. And so I'm sure there's a lot of accountants who've been burnt by this process of using technology. For me, I came from a corporate background, so I was used to Oracle, NetSuite, SAP. When I first used Xero, for me, that was a big, I was blown away by the fact that a small business software can do so much that a large enterprise solution cannot. And I went down that path of looking at what else can I add on to Xero, right? And it's not just Xero, it's other systems out there as well, QuickBooks, Wafek, Zoho have their own suite of apps, but there's so many different, once you go into the technology and you embrace it, you can actually find more possibilities, and you change your mindset from, okay, I need to use Excel to I need to use systems to make things more efficient. And not only does it make you more efficient as an accountant, what it also allows you to do is it gives you more powers. So for example, when we started using Xero, we were able to customize some reports. Now, in my previous corporate day background, if we wanted to customize reports and add additional lines, that was like a 3-month project, and you had to give it to a consultant to do it for you. But we were able to do that, and this is like 5-10 years ago. Now with AI, not only can you prepare reports, but it will give you the commentary as well, and it will tell you what's wrong, what's right and wrong. And this is where we as an accountant, so we can be the drivers of technology within businesses and for our clients as well, because we have all the tools we need to be able to do that. And I don't think AI is something that's going to take our jobs away. You still need an accountant. I think what AI will do is make us even more productive and even more superhuman from an accountant's point of view.
Thanks for that. You kind of stole my next question, but I'll let it slide. I'll ask it anyway, because I think there's much more of an extended answer to be had there as well. So kind of like a brief history of kind of how accountancy and doing books and getting reports created and so on has evolved over the last sort of 50, 60 years now. And my question was going to be, what role is AI going to have in specifically taxation? And is Taxstar doing anything in that space to help accountants?
Great question. So I think AI is not just going to affect taxation, it will affect reporting, it will affect bookkeeping, it will affect reconciliations, it will affect forecasts as well, right? So taxation is just one part of the accounting universe that it will affect. AI does have its problems, right? There are privacy issues with AI. There are inaccuracies with AI as well. And there's a lot of skepticism in terms of how you use it in your business. And so you have to kind of be aware of that and make sure that you're ticking the boxes when it comes to a compliance process. In terms of Taxstar, what we do is we look at all of the different processes when you're preparing a tax return, and we try to add automation or AI in that process where possible. Now, we released our product this year for corporation tax, and we've added a few situations where we can use AI to help improve that process. And that one is automating the TB mapping. One is using OCR to read documentation, so then you can upload documents. The other is we also added an AI chatbot. And I'll go into the reasons why when I do a demo. But in the future, we want to add more because there's a lot of manual processes that a person will do, but an AI can do. So, for example, our vision is to not just look at your TB, but go through the transactions and sort out the transactions from a tax point of view, what's tax deductible, what's not tax deductible. So that whole process where a human's doing it manually is done automatically. So you get that time back that you need as an accountant. One of the things that's happening in our industry is that regulation continues to grow and evolve and develop. So if I talk about the tax field specifically, we've had VAT, in 2018. We then had corporation tax now. We've got e-invoicing coming up. And if you're a very large company, you've got Pillar 2. So with e-invoicing, what that basically means is that you have to then be able to send e-invoices from your system to your customer. With Pillar 2, if your revenue is more than $750 million, your tax rate goes up, right? So there's so many additional things that you're having to do as an accountant. And if you're stuck with manual processes, you can't work smarter, you're working harder. And an accountant needs to work smart because there's so many new regulations and so many new changes that are happening all the time. That's just on the compliance side. On the business side, we're in a day and age where business is moving super fast. Right? You've got companies, if you're working for a startup, you're growing from 0 to 100 million in a matter of years, which means your processes needs to be updated. If you're producing a set of a basic P&L and balance sheet, after 12 months, guess what? You need to produce a P&L and balance sheet for each cost center. You need to look at how cash flows, right? How can I automate my cash flow process? Can I predict where I'm going to be if I change some of my assumptions on sales, right? If instead of targeting a certain market, I'm going to target a different market. How can I model that in? All of these things can be automated, but us as an accountants, we need to find these solutions to help us become more and more. It will help us up our game. Like yesterday, I had a meeting with a new company, a new startup, and they were showing me their system, what they were doing. Very similar to a Dext, right? But one thing I said to them is, look, everything's on WhatsApp right now, right, in the UAE. If you're able to produce a system where we have someone in one of your system is in the WhatsApp group, and we can pull out all of the invoices from there and then use OCR and push it into Xero, that will save us a lot of time, right? And there's so many new tech companies coming up all the time that are building these solutions because they look at all of the use cases that we have as an accountant, and they find solutions and they go out there and build it. So we're actually quite privileged in the sense that there are people out there trying to build solutions for the problems that we have. Taxar is one of them, and I'm sure through your webinar, you'll start uncovering more and more because I know that you're working with quite a few other softwares out there that solve a lot of big solutions that we need support on.
Definitely, I think with my experience, so I've come from the UK, and I've been in Dubai now. Is it 9 months? So I'm on my 9th month now, and actually, this is a point that came up last week where we had our coffee morning for the accounting room, which is a free community. It's part of a premium community that we have. With Accounting Refigured. We've got a free WhatsApp group as well, so shameless plug there. We'll send you out a link to be able to join that as well. So if you've got any questions, you can drop it in there. But back to the point, one of the points that was made is that it feels as if in the UK, there is, especially now, there's much more of an abundancy mindset. And what I mean by that is people are happy to take ideas from other people and kind of bounce off of other people who've gone on that journey to start becoming more tech focused and more enterprising with what they're using within their businesses. And I think it's very much so the same with softwares. And the reason why I say that is because I think you could look for a product which is going to do absolutely everything. But how well is it going to do each of those little things? I think from the best practices, and this is my personal opinion, never having run an accountancy practice, but my personal opinion of working with thousands so far is that when you have an ecosystem, you get to choose like the best general ledger for your client, and then the best tax software for this region, and then the best OCR software and the best reporting, and you get to use all of those. And as long as they plug in, and then you tend to have quite a good experience. The whole point is that you can just plug and play, and you can really be quite well. You can make your data work quite well for you. And in this day and age, where you have clients with such a high appetite as well, who want to know more about their business, who don't just see their accountant as, you know, someone who they're dropping paperwork off to every so often and kind of ignoring, and someone who's giving them a big bill at the end of the year. Where you have that kind of client and that type of generation that we have at the moment, I think accountants that prepare themselves and have the latest tech and use what's out there, and really are curious to what's possible. If the UK's transition is anything to go by, I think what we're experiencing here in the UAE with the introduction of VAT now years ago, and now corporation tax, e-invoicing, and there's no doubt that there's going to be more and more changes coming up. I think those practices that spend their time understanding the things that they can do to really make their practices efficient and give their clients the best service via technology that's available are going to be the ones that are shining at the moment. I've got another question for you, Rayhan. I think it's quite I think it's all the time from people who are coming from the UK as accountants. So in the UAE, you always hear about like fines and like penalties and things like that. I was just wondering, because you have the software, that one of the benefits is going to be to avoid some of these things, or hopefully. Have you got, I mean, what's your experience been with like fines and penalties in general with taxation? Because I know there was last year there was like they pulled some fines back, or they gave an extra grace period or something along those lines. But what's your experience been so far?
So there are a lot of fines for different things with taxation currently in the UAE, right? So for example, you have late registration penalties, you have late submission to penalties. If you haven't paid, you have a penalty for late payment as well. There's a new one now where this was enacted from 1st of April this year. Your documents in your FTA portal needs to be up to date. So if your Emirates ID is not up to date, or if your passport copy is not up to date, then you get, if you don't update it within 20 working days of it expiring, you get 5,000 dirham penalty. We added this feature in Taxa, and I'll show a demo of that quickly in this webinar. And the whole point is to kind of we're trying to do two things with this feature. Number one, help you manage your one element of compliance, which is high risk, because if you don't update the documents, then you get 5,000 dirham penalty, which is quite a lot of money. The other thing is we want to help you monetize as well, because if you're going to go to the FTA pool to update the documents, then you can charge for that service. Some people charge 100 dirhams, some people charge 1,000 dirhams, right? It just depends on what your value proposition is with that client. And so what we're trying to do is help accountants monetize from the application, so they have a direct ROI when they use Taxa. If I go more specifically into some of the nuances of penalties, yes, there are waivers from time to time, but there's not that many waivers usually. And the reason why we have quite a high, the problem with penalties is you can't appeal it. You can appeal it, but most 90% of the time it doesn't get waived. In the UK, for example, if you submit your tax return late, you call up HMRC and you say, look, something happened, right? Most of the time they do waive it. FTA, there's a process for that, and usually they don't do it unless there's mitigating circumstances. So for example, deadline came and you was in hospital, for example, and you physically couldn't do it. In that situation, they may waive. But again, you don't want to wait for that to happen. The other thing is that the businesses in the UAE specifically, they are not always on time when they do certain filings, and so they're trying to encourage businesses to be on top of their tax affairs, because you need to be able to file on time. You don't want to be in a position where you're given 9 months to file, right, your corporation tax, and that's more than enough time to file your corporation tax. If you compare this deadline to Saudi, for example, you only have 3 months to file your zakat. So when you finish your year end, you have to file your zakat by the end of April. And if you don't, you get a penalty. So corporation tax, we're getting 9 months as it is anyway. VAT, you're getting 28 days, right, to file your VAT. So they are giving you quite a lot of time to file it. You just have to be organized. Now, it could be that your books aren't audited, or it could be that you haven't closed your accounts yet, or you haven't sorted out your affairs to ensure that you're tax efficient. But they, in my opinion, I don't think they're unreasonable in terms of the penalties or the timelines. I think what we need to do as businesses is be more organized, and what we need to do as accountants is be proactive and lead take the lead on making sure your client is organized, so they see that they can rely on you because they've given their process to you. And when they have trust in your process, your lifetime value of that client is going to be 10 years, 20 years, right? It's not going to be a 5-year lifetime value. When they rely on your processes, they'll trust you more, they'll respect you more, you'll have a better relationship with your clients, which means you'd like to work with them rather than you hate that interaction and you hate that email that you have with that client. And so I think, yes, penalties are there. Penalties are can be quite high, but I think it's an opportunity for accountants to be able to use that. I know a lot of accountants use it as a stick, but you can also use it as a carrot as well.
I really like that. I like that ending. I couldn't agree more. But we could discuss this all day, but promise that we're gonna show Taxstar. And the great thing is that Taxstar can actually solve a lot of these things. And like you just said, it's not just a stick that you can use. There's also carrots there. So there's places you can make money from. So I will stop talking. I'll stop sharing my screen and let you take over and take us through a quick demo of Taxstar.
No, I'd love to do that. I won't take up too much time. I'm not going to do like a boring 1 hour demo. I'll be very brief and very I'll be very to the point with my demo. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So as I said, one of the things that we're trying to do as Taxstar is, again, make you superhuman as an accountant, and we want to reduce the time it takes to do your corporation tax return. We do have other products in the pipeline, and we are looking to make sure that you're efficient from that point of view. Now, right now we have 3 main features that we have brought to the market. One is the AI-powered tax calculator. 2 is financial statements. We have that as well. And 3 is deadline management for FTA portal. And I'll go through each 3 in this demo. When you log in, you see your dashboard, and you can kind of have a quick view of how you're progressing with your tax return. Top line shows you what stage they're at, and the bottom line shows you when they're due. We also have this deadline report that gets emailed every week, so you can see where you're at with your tax returns. I will start off with a quick the tax calculator. So once you go in, you have your own kind of mini dashboard for your entity, and then you can see what stage they're at. When you select your tax calculator, you have a number of different tabs you need to fill in for your corporation tax filing. Now, I'm just going to reset this TB. We are currently on a Xero, Wafik, and QuickBooks App Store. You can upload a Zoho TB, and we recently added Caseware as well because one of our customers wanted Caseware. So now you can upload the Caseware TB and start your tax calculation. Now, what I'll do is I will upload the TB just so you can see what happens. So once you go in, you have to map the TB. Now, when we first built the product, this took the most amount of time, because if you had a TB with 1,000 lines, you had to manually map it one by one, so it gets mapped to our TB. So we brought in this new AI TB mapping feature where it maps 80% of your TB. It remembers how you mapped it, so you only do it once, and then the remaining TB items you can just go in, click add, and then you mark as complete, and then that's your mapping done. It then produces a profit and loss account, and this is the first stage of your corporation tax calculation process. We also have a reconciliation to make sure that your P&L matches here, and to also make sure that your TB, the P&L on your TB matches, because you may have inadvertently mapped your balance sheet account, for example. We do those checks. We then have a number of tabs that you need to fill in. And what we tend to do is we've looked at some of the law and we've added disclaimers. So for example, with participation interest, not only can you add information in here, but we also add question marks, because the whole philosophy of this is that a junior staff will start the process and a senior will review it and submit it to the tax return. And so we're adding prompts where your junior can think about the process and think about what's going on in the company. So for example, with participating interest, we're asking, do you have a 5% or greater ownership in the interest? Because if you're less than 5% ownership, you don't qualify for the participating interest. We then have other calculations. So for example, interest can be quite complicated if your interest is more than 12 million dirhams. So you have to apply the general interest deduction rules, which means you can only deduct 30% of your EBITDA for interest. You then have to work out your EBITDA, not based on your own EBITDA, but the EBITDA as prescribed by the FTA. So we've added the breakdown here. Here you can see there's attachments and notes, so you can have full audit trail of what's going on your tax return. We've also added, for example, entertainment. Here we've added the entertainment types. So for example, many of you may not have known, but shareholder entertainment is recognized as client entertainment. And then we've added the 50% deduction in here as well. If you wanted to add other deductions and additions, you can. The other thing that we've done as well is the related party and connected persons. Now, most small businesses will have connected persons transactions, and you have to, any transactions which is more than 500,000, you have to then declare it and break it out. We've also added an Excel download of this. So once you've entered it, you can then take that Excel download and upload it into the FTA portal, because the FTA portal now has an Excel upload where you can put the related party and connected persons transactions. You get to your tax computation. This is a summary, and it works out your corporation tax. You can download this in Excel and also in PDF as well. And then you've got your tax return. So your tax return is pre-populated as much as possible. So you can see here we've pre-populated the P&L and balance sheet. There's some things we can't pre-populate, like elections, because some things you have to just make sure you're doing, it's a one-time thing and you got to do it for the first time. There are 200 fields on this tax return, and all of it is in there as well as per the FTA portal. You can also download this tax return in Excel and PDF. We don't have an API with FTA right now. We're waiting for that to happen and we can open up. But it means that you have your tax return in TaxStar. So whenever you need to review it, you can review it in here, and then you can key in into the FTA portal. You can also download, you can push your tax journals into Xero for now. And then you have your record keeping. So this is where all of your documents are saved. As you know, your documents have to be saved for 7 years. And we want you to have a single source of truth in terms of your supporting documentation for your corporation tax. So let's say you have an audit. Usually they give you 2 weeks to respond with all of the information. If everything's in Taxstar, it's an easy job. You pull out the data and send it to the FTA when you have an audit. We also have a 2-stage approval process. So you need to make sure that at least a manager has approved it and your client has approved it before you submit. So then, you don't have any problems in a sense that if you submit your tax return, your client would say to you, I never looked at it, I never saw it, right? So at least they can see that they've seen the calculation and they've seen how you've done it. And this is quite important from a control point of view as well. So that's feature number 1. That is the tax return. We also have financial statements for a financial statements template. And this is mainly, we built this feature because if your revenue is more than 50 million, or if you're a qualifying free zone, you need to produce audited financial statements. Everyone else have to produce IFRS financial statements. So most companies don't have an IFRS financial statement template. They produce P&L and balance sheet from their accounting software, which isn't fulfilling the requirement for IFRS. So what we've done is we've built this template, which is specifically for IFRS for SMEs, and it has a template that you can use to file your corporation tax. Now, it's a PDF. It's a smart PDF template. So what I can do is we've also added tabs in here, so you can add information if you want without having to go to the Excel template. So if I add 30,000 for my intangible assets, if I save the financial data, you can see it's already been added. Now, if I want to go into the template, I can also go in as well. So if I go in here and if I add a number, you can see automatically the totals have been updated as well. So back in the day when I used to do financial statements and we used to do it on Word and Excel, well, we used to do it on Word. One of the things that really annoyed me was that you had to do this manually. So I made sure that there's totals in these PDF templates as well. Now, it's got a standard set of notes. You can, of course, you can remove notes as well if you want, but you have to do this manually, and you can also add additional notes as well. Once this is done, you can download this in PDF, and then you've got a set of accounts for your financial statements, for your tax report. The last feature that I'll mention is the deadline management for your FTA documents. So now what we've done is within your entity, you can now add your trade license, passport, visas, Emirates ID. You use OCR to upload it, so you don't need to enter all of the information yourself. And it will then send you deadlines as to when they're coming due. We've also added this section where you can keep track of some of the situations. So for example, we've added billable, non-billable, because you may bill your client, you may not bill your client for update changes. We've added notes because one thing that we've noticed is sometimes if you update your FTA portal, it might take 3 months for them to approve it. So we've added a status drop down here, and also the last FTA update date. So then you can track, or you can keep track of when was the last time you updated it and when you checked it, so you can see the status of that. We then have a report, a document expiry report. So here you can see the entity name, the document type, when it is expiring, and also the information here, such as is it billing, non-billing, any notes, the FTA portal status, and the last FTA update date as well. And this will help you keep on top of all of your clients. You can download this report in Excel. We're also working on, you can download this report in PDF. We're also working on a Excel report, which then you can download and you can then share within your organization. This also gets emailed out to you on a weekly basis as well. And then finally, I'm super excited to mention that we now have an AI chatbot. So what we did is we created our own custom GPT. We put all of the laws into this GPT, and now you can ask questions on this chatbot. So if I ask, what is small business relief? Taxstar AI is thinking, and it's giving me the answer to what it is. Now, obviously, this is not 100% accurate. It is a custom GPT, but we put this in there because again, your juniors are the ones who are going to be working on Taxstar most of the time. They may have silly questions, and rather than go to you or the seniors, they can ask the GPT at the first instance some of the questions that they have on corporation tax. And then they can escalate those questions to the manager, the partner. And this, obviously, we brought this in there to kind of help with the education for your staff, because Fahim, one of the things that I didn't mention was one of the challenges for accounting firms right now is that they have to upskill a lot of their staff in corporation tax. And they need to be able to spot some of the nuances when it comes to corporation tax. And so we've added that in there to kind of help accounting firms have one less thing to worry about when it comes to tax compliance.
Thanks so much for that demo, Rayhan. Definitely, I've seen these developments come out. I've been familiar with Taxstar for over a year now, so it's great to see that you're building the product. I think that's one of the greatest indicators to a software that's going to stick around, that you're almost constantly developing the product. I find that with a lot of the products that we partner with here at Scope, and hopefully we'll be getting onto the webinar as well, so you can see those. But great. So we'll get into the Q&A section. Let me just reshare my screen. So this is more sort of the community have a way to ask you questions that that you've got coming up. I've got a few myself, but let me just check the LinkedIn comments to see if we've had any so far. No. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to drop them in to the LinkedIn comment section. What I'll do is I've got one that I've been asked to ask you about Taxstar, and it's all about how you actually use it. So one of the biggest things about using and choosing a software is going to be how you actually implement it into your practice, because you can buy something great. It's just really how you use it. So I had this question very recently about how do we get set up? What does onboarding feel like? What does it look like? How long is it going to take, depending on how many clients I've got to onboard, of course. And then let's say 3, 6, 12 months on, what things are there in place to make sure that I'm continually able to use all of the new things that are coming out in Taxstar? Because Taxstar is going to be a product in September, and then let's say in January, February, there's going to be some extra things added in as well. So what does that whole process look like?
Yep, no, great question. Quite a lot to unpack. So in terms of how does it work for an accounting firm day to day? So you as an accounting firm, you need to build your internal corporation tax process, right? So usually what that means is our good friend Excel, we have a template, we use it for all of our clients, right? And we know what the problems are with Excel. It's not secure. Anyone can change it. I used to hate it when someone used to take my Excel sheet and change the formulas, and I'm like, what happened, man? Like, I need to see, I have to go back to all of my different formulas and figure out which kind of formula they removed into or hard coded. You can email is not secure. So if you're emailing Excel sheets to anyone, it's basically an open postcard, right? Anyone can see that sheet. And obviously there's multiple versions. So back in the day, I'd have version 1, version 1.2.5, version 1.2.3, version 2, version 2.5, version 2.6. So you want to make sure that you have a controlled process. And effectively, if you start now, you don't have a process. We've given you a process, right? So there is no onboarding. If you have an existing process, all you're doing is you're using Taxstar for the accounting, some of the clients that you haven't started a tax return for. So you can use that from the get-go. Now, in terms of onboarding, what does that look like? So we do the onboarding for you. You don't need to worry about onboarding. And onboarding is just very simply setting up your entities. So we will set up your entities. We'll upload the trade license, Emirates IDs, and all of that for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So then your document management, your document deadline reports are ready from the get-go. And you also have your entities there ready to start the tax return. We obviously do not do the calculation for you, right? We cannot do that. That's you would have to do that, but we'll set it up so you can then start the calculation. Obviously, you'd have to do the mapping because we can't do the mapping. You're the accountant, it's your client. You know how it's like, it's like going into a kitchen, right? It's like your mum and your wife in the kitchen, right? They like some things like the sugar here, and some mothers like the salt there, and so you need to make sure it's all in the right place. And we don't want to be the in-law coming into your kitchen and changing everything, right? So you need to make sure you map the TB. Our AI will do half of the work, but we obviously don't do, as in us tax, so we don't do the remaining bits. And sorry, what was the other question? The updates, right? So in terms of the updates and using it going forward, so the key thing here is the fact that you need to keep your records for 7 years, right? So we allow your records to stay in Taxa for 7 years. We don't charge you for storage. We are also, our data centers in the UAE. So your data is not in the US or Australia or anywhere else. It's actually in the UAE. We use the same provider as the UAE government, which is Azure. So, we have that level of scrutiny in terms of where we keep the data. In terms of updates, like I said, our vision is right now we're pulling TB. Next year, we want to start pulling in transactions. So we want to further enhance this process. And there'll be a number of changes that are happening. So you as an accounting firm, you have to be on top of all of the changes of rules that are happening all the time. So for example, small business relief will be, is only up until 2026. There'll be carry forwards. Your losses will be carried forward. The interest on your loans that you haven't utilized will be carried forward as well. If you got an Excel sheet, you've got to make sure you maintain it and check what happened last year, but we're doing that for you. So when you roll forward your company to the next year, all of that's ready, right? It's like going into a hotel and your bed is ready for you to sleep, right? It's not jumbled up in a mess. So we have all of that ready for you, and we want to add additional enhancements, and we want to hear from your feedback as well. Wherever we can improve and help the customer experience, we will do, because we want to be a world-class technology company. We don't want to just be like a side project that's just for accounting firms, right? We want to be a world-class business, and we want to take that feedback and make your life as easy as possible as an accountant.
Yeah, there's also a point that you missed where you could have definitely mentioned the Taxstyle webinar, which you guys do very regularly. So there's plenty of resource out there for people to stay up to date with what's happening with Taxstyle. I know you're very active on LinkedIn and just online in generally. So you're not going to miss an update. It's essentially what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So
go on.
Go ahead.
So we have been doing some webinars with Rashmi from Eco-Mystery RB, mainly to help with education on what's going on in the market. Rashmi is a very deeply knowledgeable person when it comes to corporation tax. So again, one of the challenges that a lot of accounting firms will face is upskilling their staff, and not even when you upskill, there's so many changes that happen all the time. You need to keep up to date with a lot of those changes. And so our application is going to be updated for next year, which means that it's one less headache you have to think about as a business to make sure all your processes are updated and you tick all the boxes. You as a business, you want to serve your clients, right? The more you can serve your clients, the more revenue you make. The more you're trying to manage processes, the more your margins will get smaller as an accounting firm, because you're spending all that time managing your process, making sure the process is updated. Your process as an accounting firm is working, is slick. You want to be focusing on your client because that's how you monetize as a business.
So I think you briefly covered this, but if you can just give us a couple of bullet points. The question we got from Eamon was, what's on the roadmap for Taxstar next? Like, what's coming out?
So, in terms of we're building two additional products. One is e-invoicing. So we're looking to do an e-invoicing product in the future. We're also going to be building a zakat product for Saudi for next year. This is mainly for the Saudi entrepreneurs who are sole establishments. So we're working on that at the moment. In terms of Taxstar, the corporation tax product, again, we want to add more automation and AI features. So one of the things we want to do is pull in the transactions rather than the TB, and make it do more calculations independently, rather than you having to kind of decide what type of how to treat certain transactions. So, for example, if you've got a related party transaction or a connected person transactions, that connected person transactions may have salary and benefits and other transactions in there. We want to be able to take those transactions and sort it out automatically for you. That's our plan for next year. And there's obviously law update changes that we have that we need to that's going to be on the application as well. So again, as much as we can do to support the accountants in that process, we will do. But those are our two main products that we're going to be launching, and the enhancements that we're looking to do on the corporation tax side.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We've not got any more questions, so I think let's start wrapping up. But I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining me for the first time. I've done a webinar. This is really brand new to me. Obviously, we did one before, but hosting one from this is the first time that I've done it for Scope. So thank you so much for being the first guest on here. And obviously, you're welcome back when we've got some good meat on the bones in terms of updates and stuff, which I'm sure we will do sooner rather than later. It'd be great to get you back on how it's evolved. But again, look, thank you so much for joining me. What I've done as well is, so because we partner with Taxstar, I've created this link. So if anyone's there that wants to kind of extend this conversation, look at a more in-depth of Taxstar, and actually talk about how we can start using it in your practice, please just scan this QR code. You'll be able to book some time directly in my diary where we can get you on a demo and make sure that we can support you in choosing whatever softwares it is you might be looking at, but more specifically Taxstar. So that will remain up there for time. I'll also post it into the comments of this webinar. And I think a good point to just end on would be, where can people find how to get in contact with you, and how do I start the journey?
First things first, thank you for inviting me to episode number 1, because episode number 1 would always go in history. So episode number 1, I've taken that spot. Thank you very much. Secondly, you've done a great job, you and Scope. So well done on doing these webinars. And I think these webinars are very, very important for the accounting community, because we don't really have we're not supported enough in this region. And you being, Scope, you're able to give us the best technologies that you're speaking to. You're not biased in any way, in the sense that there are some other software companies or other kind of platforms where they will be biased towards certain softwares. So it's good to have impartiality in terms of the advice that you give. I know you and Eamon are very impartial from that point of view. Finally, to get a hold of me, LinkedIn. I'm quite active on there. You can DM me on LinkedIn, and on this webinar, this is on LinkedIn anyway, so you just give me a DM, and happy to get in contact. I would say Fahim can do demos, but if you have very specific questions on Taxstar, just feel free to reach out to me. And if you need any advice, if you're an accounting firm owner, you need any advice on running a business, running a firm, any insights that we have, because we work with many accounting firms, we're happy to kind of help you and pass on any insights that we have that will help you grow your business.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rayhan.
Very much.